Black Dog of the Mountain by Kit Williamson. Over the many decades I have been afforded in life, few incidents have ever terrified me as much as what I have come to call the Black Dog of the Mountain. In the time of my youth, myself and my group of friends formed what we came to think of as a gang, Sam, Riker, and I. In those days, we truly thought that there was nothing that could stop us, nothing that could frighten us, that we were invincible. One pleasant summer evening, we were proven just how vulnerable, how inadequate, and how utterly ignorant we were of things in the world. We gathered at my house that afternoon, planning out mischief for that evening's delight. How we reveled in the thoughts of our childhood pranks, from egging houses of those we disliked, to scaring the local herds resting peacefully in their pastures. As the sun began to fade into the west, we scaled the mountain. By all standards, the mountain is more of a hill, standing at its highest 60 to 70 feet. But to our youthful minds, it was not only just a mountain, it was our base of operations. We would gather our sleeping bags, some matches or a lighter, and our cassette player and haul it up every night we met. Most nights we were satisfied with sitting around a campfire and listening to rock music while we talked about girls, school, and what the future might hold for us. To this day, I don't know what attracted the beast to us, whether it was our youthful innocence or if we were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But that night was the last meeting of our gang. We began the night by stopping at our favorite camping site, setting up our sleeping bags, setting wood in the fire ring, and cooking up some hot dogs while talking over the flames. We were restless that evening, and no amount of music and talk would satisfy our desire for mischief. So we gathered our supplies for the evening, our paintball guns, a roll of toilet paper, and some Black Cat firecrackers. We didn't have a set plan for the evening, but that wasn't unusual. We usually just made things up as we went along. We started with a hike of about 1.5 miles to the local highway. At this time of night, there was not usually that much traffic, so we had ample time to set up our trap. Pulling random debris from the side of the highway, we erected a makeshift barricade that we hoped would cause people to stop when they saw it. We would wait quietly on the hill, overlooking the road for some innocent to fall into our trap, whereupon we would set on them with our paintball guns as they exited their vehicle, then flee into the woods. Our final victim of the evening was a large black SUV. It slowly came to a stop in front of our improvised roadblock before the driver door opened. Just as we readied ourselves to open fire on the unsuspecting victim, the SUV's blue and red lights began flashing. With hardly a thought, each and every one of us slammed ourselves into the dirt, not daring to move a muscle. The officer, for that is what he was, began to pan his flashlight across the hill where we were hiding. He unceremoniously shoved our debris off the road with his foot, flashlight still panning back and forth across the dirt, only uncut grass protecting us from discovery. At one point, his light fell directly on us, and we completely froze, terrified that even a breath might reveal our hiding place. By some stroke of luck, he failed to see our forms concealed on top of the hill. After a few minutes that seemed like an eternity to us, he turned off his light, got back into the SUV, and drove off. It was a few minutes more before we gathered up the courage to pick ourselves up from the ground, scared that the officer might return. In our terror, we decided to take an alternate route back to our camp, one that involved avoiding all roads where the officer might patrol. Thinking ourselves so clever, we crept under barbed wire fences, snuck through others' yards, and slipped quietly through the forest. As we neared the mountain, our terror lessened, as we knew we had gotten away with our mischief for the night. The mountain has several trails leading up it, created by the local wildlife, deer, elk, javelina, and the like. Because of our location, we opted to climb the mountain opposite of where my house lay. It was faster than going around the mountain and climbing back up to get to camp. Guided only by the light of the moon, we navigated the woods, making our slow, steady climb up the mountain. We were about halfway back to camp when we started to feel uneasy. A primordial terror gripped each of us, a fear so basic that it harkens back to when our ancestors first came out of the trees. We were being watched. Having been raised in the forest all our lives, there was no terror for us in the local wildlife. Bears and mountain lions were common in the area, but none had yet to bother us. The thing we felt more than saw at the time was neither. A chill danced upon our spines as we came to a halt, staring wildly into the darkness of the moonlit branches. Suddenly from below us, there arose a snapping, crunching sound, as of some prehistoric beast chewing on a limb. It was followed closely by a thunderous rumble, which echoed through the empty forest, reaching into our very souls and paralyzing us in place. The beast, for beast it was, slowly lurked towards us, each fall of its giant paw crunching the debris below it. We found ourselves rooted to the ground on which we stood, fear taking control of our muscles while our brains raced in horror at what we had witnessed. The beast stood taller than any of us at its shoulder, a large canine head staring at us from the jet-black body it was attached to. Trails of saliva dripped from its perfectly white teeth as it leered at the three of us, falling to the ground with a splat, splat, splat. With a tense, the black dog lowered its head almost to the ground, then raised its fearsome maw up to the moon, letting out a howl that sounded like some demented orchestra with no conductor to keep it in check. It was this howl that broke our paralysis, sending each of us scattering in a different direction. Perhaps it was this basic prey instinct that saved our lives, for as we scattered, the beast paused a moment, not sure which direction to pursue. Fleeing, for the very devil was at our heels, we gave no heed for branch, root, rock, or other obstructions. I remember clearly branches tearing at my face. I remember vaulting over barbed wire fences as if I was a wild deer evading a pack of hungry wolves. I am not sure how long I ran in my flight, but somehow each of us found the other at the edge of the road as we raced for my house, still pursued by the crunching of debris behind us. Down the road we sped, flinging ourselves at the door to the house and falling inside, kicking the door closed behind us, turning the deadbolt, the chain fastener, and the door lock in haste before hiding deeper within the living room. I do not know what kept the beast from coming inside the house and rending us, but by some grace it either was unable or unwilling to cross the threshold. But still it hunted and waited for us, its snuffling nose and the thump of its gigantic feet a steady reminder of its presence. We stayed awake that night, not daring to sleep lest the beast find a way inside. As the sun rose, the beast once again let forth its orchestral howl. Then all fell silent. As we watched the sun rise through the window, each of us fell asleep, myself being the last to succumb to the weariness of the evening. Our gang never met again after that night, and it is rare for me to even speak to either of my friends anymore. We never told a soul for fear that they would think us mad. Even we would have eventually considered it a childish flight of fancy had we not, in the brightness of the midday sun, stepped out from shelter to be greeted by a paw print the size of a dinner plate in the soft grass of the yard. I still do not know what it was that found us that night, nor how we all managed to escape unharmed, but I do know that never again will I visit the mountain at night, for in the wilds contained on top of that place, who knows what other terrors might lurk in the middle of the forest, long forgotten by man.